The Path of Reflection, Lessons from the Journey of Life. In a small, ancient village surrounded by whispering forests and serene rivers, there lived an old storyteller named Kian. His stories were known to touch the soul, carrying timeless truths disguised as simple tales. Every evening, people from nearby villages gathered around a crackling fire to hear his words. One day, a young man named Arian approached him with a question that lingered in his heart. "Master Kian," Arian began, "why does life feel so full of contradictions? Love turns into indifference, happiness is fleeting, and trust is often broken. How do we make sense of it all?" Kian smiled, his face a canvas of wrinkles etched by years of wisdom. He gestured for Arian to sit beside him. "Life," Kian began, "is much like a journey through a vast forest. Every step teaches us something, but we often miss the lessons because we are too focused on reaching the destination. Let me tell you a story. The Garden of Truths. Once, in a kingdom far away, there was a mystical garden known as the Garden of Truths. It was said to contain every answer a person sought, but the answers were not handed out, they were hidden within the challenges of the garden itself. Many entered the garden, but few returned, for the truths were not always easy to accept. One day, a young woman named Lila decided to venture into the garden. Her heart was heavy with questions. Why do people betray those they love? Why does suffering exist? And why does happiness feel so fragile? As Lila stepped into the garden, the air grew still, and the path ahead divided into 3 trails. A signpost stood in the middle, inscribed with a riddle. To find what you seek, you must first choose the path of reflection, the path of sacrifice, or the path of acceptance. Lila chose the path of reflection, believing it would lead her to answers. The trail was narrow, lined with mirrors of various shapes and sizes. At first, the mirrors showed her as she was a simple young woman with curious eyes. But as she walked further, the reflections began to change. In one mirror, she saw herself consumed by anger, shouting at a loved one. In another, she saw herself ignoring a beggar who had asked for food. Each reflection revealed a moment from her past, moments she had buried deep within her mind. She turned away, unwilling to face the truths. But a voice echoed through the garden, "You cannot change what you refuse to see." Reluctantly, Lila returned to the mirrors. She gazed at her reflections, tears streaming down her face as she confronted the person she had been. She saw her pride, her selfishness, and her fears. But as she continued, the mirrors began to change again. This time, they showed her acts of kindness, helping a neighbor, comforting a friend, sharing her last piece of bread with a stranger. A realization dawned upon her: we are not defined by a single moment but by the sum of all our choices. When she reached the end of the path of reflection, a new sign awaited her. It read, "Truth should be in love, and love in truth. The heart cannot heal what the mind refuses to understand." The path of sacrifice. Lila moved to the next trail, the path of sacrifice. Here, the garden transformed into a barren desert, with the scorching sun beating down on her. Along the way, she encountered people in need, a man struggling to carry water, a child crying for food, and an elderly woman unable to walk. Despite her own exhaustion, Lila helped each of them, sacrificing her energy and resources. With every act of kindness, the desert began to bloom. By the time she reached the end of the path, the once barren trail was covered in vibrant flowers. A sign at the end read, To give without expecting, to love without conditions, is to understand the true essence of life. The path of acceptance. The final trail, the path of acceptance, was shrouded in mist. As Lila walked, she heard voices, whispers of regret, pain, and loss. The voices grew louder, forming a chorus of her deepest fears and insecurities. "Why did they leave me?" one voice cried. "Why wasn't I enough?" another lamented. Lila wanted to run, but there was no way back. Instead, she sat down and listened. The mist began to clear, revealing a pond. As she peered into the water, she saw her reflection. But this time, it did not accuse or judge her. It simply was. She realized that some questions would never have answers, and some wounds would take time to heal. But fighting against the inevitable only deepened the pain. A final sign appeared, etched into the ground. Acceptance is not weakness. It is the courage to face life as it is, not as we wish it to be. The return. When Lila emerged from the garden, she felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. She realized that the truths she sought were not hidden by the garden but within herself. She carried the lessons with her. Reflect on your actions and learn from them. Give selflessly, for love is in the giving, not the taking. Accept what you cannot change, for peace lies in surrender. When Lila returned to her village, she became known as a wise woman. People often asked her how she had found peace. She would smile and say, "The answers were always there. I just needed the courage to look." Kian finished his story, his eyes twinkling as he looked at Arian. "The contradictions you speak of, Arian, are the essence of life. Love may fade, but it also heals. Happiness is fleeting, but it teaches us gratitude. And trust, when broken, shows us the strength to rebuild. The answers you seek are already within you. You just need the courage to face them." Arian sat in silence, the weight of the story settling into his heart. The fire crackled, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if they, too, understood the truths hidden in the journey of life. Reflection questions. 1. Which path, reflection, sacrifice, or acceptance, do you resonate with the most? 2. What truths have you discovered about yourself through life's challenges? If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content. Thank you.